And we are live. JT here, and welcome to the huddle. The huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are watching on YouTube or whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my friendly reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on our conversation, to remove any distractions and get laser focus on the here and the now. And I guarantee you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. Before we hit record, I was mentioning to him when this idea of the huddle started, 3.5 years ago, he was definitely one of the first names of the 25 of people that I wanted to connect with and, learn more about his journey. And here we are now. It's a great reminder that life's all divine timing. My guest in the huddle today is a Western Mustangs alum. He is a 12-year CFL alum and was in the past served as the president of the CFLPA. My guest in the huddle today is Jeff Keeping. How are you today, brother?
Good, JT. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Hey, it's all good. And it's interesting, like as we were prepping here, it brought me back down memory lane, and it sort of just reminded me of how fast time can go. Like it's like, where have the last 20-25 years gone? Like it's a great reminder.
Absolutely. In blink of an eye.
I'm just glad we've aged so gracefully.
Speak for yourself, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, before we get kicked off, pun intended, I just want to take a moment to count my blessings. And for me, this is a daily practice. Some days I do it better than others, but I do find the days where I'm most consistent counting my blessings. I do find those days are filled with a little bit more love, a little bit more joy, a little bit more peace. And I'm a big believer, biggest blessing you can give anyone is your time and energy. So just want to thank you again for blessing us with some of your time and energy here today, brother.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to do in the huddle, and it was interesting, it's one of our mutual connections would remind me that, we all have these things that make us unique and different, and it's our responsibility to celebrate them. And it's really a great reminder that life's a game and games are supposed to be fun. So I'm curious, what's an interesting fact about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you'd be open to sharing with our community today?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question, JT. That a lot of people wouldn't know. I think most people, because the only thing I really use social media for these days is celebrating my kids and their accomplishments. But obviously, super proud of my 3 boys and our growing family.
Yeah.
But I think most people that know me, that's all I really talk about anyway. So I don't know that I have a great answer to that question. Yeah, just tucked away up here in Uxbridge, growing our family and super proud to have finished playing football and moved back to my hometown where we're raising our boys now.
Yeah. Well, it's great. And as you share that, it's a great reminder, right? On like really what matters in this life, right? Like you talked about like the pride and joy, the boys, right? The family, and how through your journeys, you've come back to where your roots are. And now you're building this life out there. I'm curious, what has that transition been like, going back to the roots and sort of just giving your kids, similar space to, that's a big part of who you are today.
Yeah, it was interesting. I retired in the spring of 2017. So my last season was in 2016 with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Mhm.
And we knew we were kind of getting to a transitional point where, I knew the end was definitely closer than the beginning of my playing career.
Yeah.
And my oldest son was going to be starting schooling. So we were starting to think about what was next for me, what it looked like for our family moving forward, what that next kind of chapter was going to be in our lives for me professionally, and where were we going to put down roots, or was it time to put down roots, or were we going to take a risk or do something different. But what it came down to is my wife and I are both from Uxbridge, and we had two boys at the time in Winnipeg. And when we made the decision that, yes, I was going to be done playing football, then it was the thought of an opportunities around coaching football.
Mhm.
So that was probably the toughest decision in this whole thing was, do you stay in a game you love and get to continue just down in a different role
Mhm.
and try out coaching? Or I grew up in a fire family. So my father was a firefighter. My grandfather on my mom's side was a firefighter. So I grew up with that being a big part of my life and always in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And was super fortunate to play as long as I did. And I always thought, I'll retire when I'm in my late 20s or when I'm 30. That way I'm still young enough and fit enough to get on a fire department. But then, you're so committed to the game and your teammates and that quest that I found myself on the north side of 35 still playing, which is great. But then it came down to, do I get into coaching, or is this the time to try out that thing that's kind of been in the back of my head all along?
Mhm.
And ultimately you sit down, we're a team, so I'm not making the decisions alone. Um, and it came down to, my in-laws are here in Uxbridge, my parents are in Uxbridge, our family, and it just all worked really well to kind of come back, put roots down here, um, and go this route. And lucky for me, everything worked out with getting on the fire department.
Mm. It's interesting, and again, as long as we've known each other, I didn't realize how deep those firefighting roots, run in your family. But it's interesting, and now you start to understand why it seems like it's been something that you've really turned your passion towards, right? Like career and professionally. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, it was great. And for me, I've been since we were together at Western, I've
Mhm.
been part of a team. So I know what looms over a lot of athletes transitioning is,
Yeah,
that loss of that team.
yeah,
So I was super fortunate when I moved back to Uxbridge. During this whole process, I had applied to the Uxbridge Fire Department, which is our local volunteer fire service.
yeah.
So right away, summer of 2017, I started my career with them and, was immediately part of a new team and just got to be the rookie all over again.
Well, and again, it's interesting, and why it resonates with me is, anyone that's been involved in sport, right, knows that one of the biggest benefits, blessings is especially in team sports, is that sense of community, is that greater sense of family, right? And just really that sense of belonging that we have. And I know for me, that was something I struggled with initially when I left, teaching and coaching in a traditional sense was, that you don't realize how important that is, right? That sense of belonging, community, and family, can be. Um, I'm curious, besides teamwork, right? You had a very successful career individually and as a team, right? I'm curious, you won some individual accolades, you won the team, you got to the highest level of your profession. What would you say was a life lesson that you've taken from sport that you still find yourself applying to other areas of your life today, besides being a great teammate?
Right. Um, I don't think I knew it at the time, but I think when I reflect and look back, I like and love the term grit, and I saw the term grit being said, greatness resides in toughness. And
Mhm.
when I look back, I know for sure I was definitely not the fastest, not the strongest, not the best athlete on any of my teams, but I feel like I was able to overcome adversity and be a better player than maybe my skills even lended myself to. And it's not just toughness in the sense of like being able to hit or take a hit, but being tough enough to do the things it takes when nobody's watching. Like I was always in the gym, always trying to do more than maybe what was necessary
Yeah.
because I wanted to be a part of it so bad, and it meant a lot to me, and I never wanted to let my teammates down. So I feel like that toughness sometimes only gets looked at in the one way of like, physicality,
Yeah.
but I think there's so much around being tough, like tough mentally,
Mm.
physically, and tough enough to do the things it takes when nobody's around, when people aren't watching, when the lights are off. Are you tough enough to say no or to not do something is not right and just make all those little decisions that are tough. They
Yeah.
maybe don't fall under that umbrella of that masculine toughness, but I think those are those little things that can make a huge difference.
And I love that you share that, right? Again, you have this image of physical toughness, especially in a highly competitive, highly physical sport like football, right? Like people think of physical toughness, but like you talked about, are you tough mentally? Are you tough emotionally? Are you tough socially, right? Are you tough spiritually? So I'm curious, I think back to our days. How did that serve you, right? Because again, not many people play as long as you did in the CFL, but then also you changing positions, right? Because again, you were a tight end, right, in university, and you transitioned to having a great career and were in leadership roles. So how did that sort of toughness, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, how did that support you as you were transitioning from different positions, different cities, just different roles in your professional career?
Yeah, I think I'll probably overuse the word, but like tough enough to just say yes to an opportunity, to be open to trying something you haven't done before, and just saying yes and seeing where it leads and putting your best foot forward. Like tough enough to not be too scared to try something.
Yeah.
And I remember I got drafted by the Argos and came to training camp that year. And I had never played offensive line, defensive line, I was a tight end, like you said. And they drafted me as kind of like an athlete prospect O line. And I fully expected that I'd go to training camp, play O line for my first time in training camp with the Argos, and go back to Western for my fifth year and play offensive line in that fifth year. And then be able to go back with this, base of experience.
Mhm.
Uh, but I just, you know, stepped in, said yes when it was my rep. And saying that, I was also super fortunate to have amazing veterans
Mhm.
that were just so open to this new raw kid coming in and, teaching me, coaching me. And the business of sport is tough. The game will never love you back as much as you love it. But these are guys in a professional setting that fed their families based off them having their jobs, and they were just first class helping me along. So that's
Yeah.
something that always sat deep with me and I wanted to carry forward. But ultimately just said yes and just, you know, put it all out there to where at the end of camp, I was fortunate enough to have Hall of Famer Miles Gorell was working for the Argos at that time. And
Mhm.
they know they get you at the mess hall at lunch. So
Yeah.
everyone kind of is eyes down with your food tray as you finish your lunch, and you're either getting the tap to go get your playbook and see coach,
Yeah.
or they don't tap you and you kind of saunter down to the locker room unseen.
Yeah.
But I got that tap after lunch on that last day at camp, and he said, "You're not going anywhere, kid."
Yeah.
And that kind of just started a journey, and that same recipe of just saying yes and being tough enough to try something out took me from playing O-line that first year to we had a retirement. Noah Cantor, a veteran D tackle, retired, and Rich Stubler, rest in peace, had me working with him, in practices. Oh, you want to play some defense? And said, well, we got an opening. You want to play D tackle? Never played a defensive snap in my life in high school, university. And it's like, you're just a young guy, happy. And I just wanted to play. And sure enough, my second year in the CFL, I was starting at nose tackle.
I love that. And why it resonates is, we're in an interesting time, right? Where, I mean, you got boys that are, highly competitive, sports. So it's interesting that sort of yes and mentality, right? That sort of old improv rule, right? What you would have said, hey, I've never played O-line, but yes, and hey, you've never played defensive tackle before. Yes, and do you think that is something that young athletes today, do you think it's something they understand? Like that's powerful. Like when you say that to a coach, like I am willing to do whatever I can to put myself in a position to be successful, but then also putting our team in a position to be successful. Do you think that sort of yes and mentality, do you find that that's still a thing in sport?
I think so. I mean, I think that a coach, a leader that's building a team in any industry just has so much value for someone that's willing to embrace a role. It may not be the role that that person, had their sights set on or their goal, but they're willing to take it on for the betterment of the team to
Yeah.
move the collective forward. And, they could, as long as they're okay communicating where they see themselves, and if that's not there, but their actions show that they're fully bought in.
Yeah.
I just think that kind of guy, girl, on any team just
Hmm.
has a huge impact.
What do you think? I'm curious your perspective on it because I'm like you, like yes, and like how can I help? How can I support? How can I be of service? Especially you, and just thank you again for your service, right? Like you think of what you do professionally now as a firefighter. Like I mean, you're on the front line. So I guess what first and foremost, thank you for your service, brother.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm fortunate I get to do what I do.
Um, do you think that that's something that you think as caring adults? Do you think it's a lesson that's maybe been lost that maybe we need to spend some time re-teaching, re-educating people on the power of being like, yeah, you might not have envisioned this role, but here's how we can actually work together to get both of us to where we want to go.
Yeah, I think so. And I think like youth sports especially is so tough. I mean, I'm living it, and
Yeah,
the parents and the kids are hyper focused on, what kind of role they think
yeah,
they fill, or their linear path for them.
yeah,
But I think that the more focus and the sooner we're teaching these kids about buying in and the collective,
yeah,
and that they are accountable to each other.
yeah,
I we all get to play a game for as long as we get to. I was super fortunate,
yeah,
but at some point, like you said at the beginning, like we're playing the game of life here, and
yeah,
all these kids are athletes for a amount of time,
yeah.
but to be productive team members in the grand scheme, those lessons around accountability and team are just invaluable.
So I'm curious, you've mentioned that along, right? The power of like being accountable to others, right? Like, the importance of being a great teammate of playing for something bigger than you. How have those lessons that you've taken, on field, how do you think they've helped you in your transition into this new adventure, this stage of your life?
I think it's been fundamental. I mean, JT, you know, you go through each kind of stage of sports, and then you're all of a sudden a professional athlete, and you're a rookie again as a pro, and you learn from the people around you. So I think like I was so fortunate to be around people like Mike O'Shea, Chad Folk, Jude St. John, these like people that were just born leaders, and it mattered to them.
Yeah.
Right. And I watched that on a daily basis. So I feel like I was so fortunate to be around those people at that stage of my career and my development as a young man, that people just became important to me. And I feel like all of a sudden, once I was done playing football and it was like we moved back home, I got on the volunteer fire department here. And now, as part of a new team, I was reintegrating back into my community where I grew up and getting to serve people that maybe weren't my teammates directly, but essentially when we're out every day at calls, those people are your customers, but you're serving the people in your community, which is cool about what we do here in Uxbridge.
Mhm.
And they tooled me up, and I was willing to say yes and get back to school and do a bunch of learning
Mhm.
and to get the courses I needed to get on full-time fire. So I
Yeah.
got hired by Richmond Hill Fire and Emergency Services in January of 2020.
Yeah.
So I've been there since yeah, that January 2020, and again got to be on a new team
Yeah.
and got to be the rookie again. And I know for a fact that the tools and the skills that I learned as a young athlete and as a young pro athlete, and embracing a role
Mhm.
helped me when I joined this team.
It's interesting, right? Like it's almost like it sounds like this sort of leveling up process. Like every new opportunity was just an opportunity for you to become a stronger, more powerful leader, right? Just to more of that role. Um, I'm curious, as you were sort of ending your playing days, you transitioned into this role of, CFLPA president. How do you think that being in that sort of leadership role, how do you think that sort of helped in your um, transition, right? Like, I'm curious, just about that leadership opportunity.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate with that. So I had talked about the guys I learned from in terms of how to play and how to be a pro, but like Mike O'Shea was our team rep in Toronto, was on the executive board with the Players Association. So this is someone I got to see kind of operate and
Mm.
serve his guys on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So then when I got the opportunity and was elected as a team representative, is kind of how it works. Each team elects team reps within the Players Association, and then those team reps elect an executive board. So I was able to serve my direct teammates first and kind of be that voice for them. And then once I was elected onto the executive board, I was in a VP role, and then was fortunate enough 2016. So my last season while I was playing with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I
Mhm.
was also serving as the president of the Players Association, which was a change to have an active player,
Okay.
which was a lot of time, but it was great because I was still very much in the room and nose to nose with all my guys, which was great. So it was a natural progression, kind of from that team rep to executive to when I was elected president, which I was super humbled and proud to have that role and to
Mhm.
kind of take on that mission of advocating for your guys. And it really it boils back to like I love serving my teammates,
Yeah.
and now I feel like in the fire service I get to carry that forward where I'm, if I show up prepared, if I'm tough enough to do what it takes to be healthy and fit, I can serve my teammates well by in the hall and on calls and serve the community. So it's really, there's so many parallels, just kind of different worlds.
Mhm.
But I've been super fortunate to go from, the world of football to now working in the fire service.
It's interesting as you share that. And part of it is as we start to dive a little bit deeper into your leadership journey. We'll call that the leadership journey and how, again, educator, I'm thinking like scaffolding, right? Like it was just a new opportunity, level up, level up, level up. Seems like the word serve and service really has become more prominent. Um, I'm curious, as you've become more focused on this idea of I'm serving those around me, whether it's my family, whether it's my wife, whether it's my kids, whether it's the guys at the hall, whether it was in that, when I was in that CFLPA president role, what have you noticed about your outlook on life as you've really sort of committed to this idea of like, my role is to be of service and to positively impact the lives of those around me?
Well, I was pretty lucky. When I started, I had the well-known Michael Pinball Clemens as my head coach, and he just preached service to others, right? Like, don't tell me about what you do, or, tell someone how you can affect their life. How you make people feel and how you serve others is going to be your legacy.
Mhm.
So again, that's something that was drilled into us early and had an impact. And I think it all comes down to how I feel like I was so fortunate to have some of these great mentors. And even when I got into the Players Association, it's unique because you're learning so much, right? Like you're a football player. We're fortunate as youth sports athletes that we receive these great educations. But again, at the same time as you're learning the business of football, um, there's so much to learn. But it comes back to, if you say yes, if you're willing to do it, if you're tough enough to just show up and put in the time, um, having these people around me that serve, I feel like they served me, that it's just kind of a continuation, and I just feel like you want to keep giving back.
It's interesting as you talk about that, right? Because it's really easy to say, right, that you service that you're a team player. But I love what you shared there with with pinball, this idea of like show them through your actions, right? Like show them how your service, right? And it's interesting, like if for example, you take a look at this. We said we're gonna meet here, Friday morning at this time. Like just the ability to like show up for each other, to have that conversation, just following through on what we said we were going to do. It's interesting how just that simple idea of like keeping promises you make is really the greatest service you can give to yourself and others.
Yeah, you said it, JT. I mean, I think the biggest resource, the thing that everybody is short on in this world, is time, right? So I don't think there's any greater service you can do than if you're giving other people your time, right?
Mhm.
Because we all have people that want a piece of that pie. And, so many of them are so deserving of it, whether it's your wife, your kids, your immediate family, friends, and you want to be there for them all. And when you are tough enough to do those things and make sacrifices so that you can give your time, I just think that's gonna be what makes the world go around, right?
Yeah. I'm curious, you talked about that, right? Like our most precious commodity is time. Like it's one of the things like you're never getting back. Like, we're never getting this, our time here together back, right? We're choosing to invest it into each other, having a great conversation. I'm curious, as someone who is so service orientated, right? Who wants to serve their family, their community as a firefighter, right? Through coaching. Is it easy? Like, is it something that you get right 100% of the time, or is it something that's a delicate dance where you're always like, ooh, you know what? I could do better here. I need to pull back here. And yeah, kind of curious your perspective.
All Yeah, it's definitely not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. And yeah, I'm flawed on a daily basis
Yeah.
because you get pulled in a lot of directions,
Mhm.
and you do have to have the ability to say no where you can't properly apply yourself, right? If you're not adding value, right? Saying yes because it's easy isn't necessarily the right thing either, right? So if saying no serves that party better, then yeah, being strong enough to do the right thing there it's tough, but
Yeah.
you gotta do it, because I don't like the idea of stealing from one pot to fill the other. Like, I'm a 100% guy. Like, whatever I'm doing, I want to put 100% into it. And if I can't, that's where the hard no's come up, which I'm not good at,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And it resonates with me so much because especially, as you, as someone who wants to give back, who wants to help and support others and serve, like you said, it's sometimes powerful and like really being self-aware enough to realize, like, can I go all in? Can I give this my all? Can I make the most of this? And there's power sometimes in just saying, you know what? It's a no right now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. It's a tough one. And it's around that whole leadership thing too, right? Like leaders have to be great followers too, and they have to know when to fall back and let other people step forward. So I think that's something that gets lost in the whole leadership conversation sometimes, is that ability to step back too.
mm. I love that you shared that. And I had a great business coach that talked about effective leaders also know when to be intelligent followers. So that really resonates with me.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. Okay. Um, so one of the things we've been talking about recently is like this idea, like you mentioned earlier, about coaching. So I'm curious, obviously, you're seeing your own boys kind of thrive. And, we actually first got reconnected like live and in person last year, right? When you were with the boys at hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts around, coaching? Like you kind of, I don't know, what's football wise? I don't know. Is it you getting the itch again?
Well, for me, yeah, I have just had an opportunity come back my way that, I've been out of football. So I stepped away when I started my fire career with Richmond Hill in 2020 is when I stepped away from the CFL Players Association.
Mhm.
So I was in recruit class and starting again, and that was a tough thing there, to step away from one team that I was so passionate about. But again, it came down to, I knew for my family, I had to say yes and be all in on the fire training and my recruit training. And I wanted to be the best guy I could be for that team. So I had to step away from the Players Association. But luckily we had a great team there, and guys were able to step up into those roles, and they've carried on and are doing a great job.
Mhm.
But yeah, now I was all in on that. And then, so I've been out of football for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just recently, I was a group from our community here in Uxbridge. So the football program at Uxbridge Secondary School unfortunately shut down in 2012.
Mhm.
So it's been gone for a little bit here, but there's been some interest around the community, and a couple community members put together a great plan. So they've launched a Restore the Roar for our Uxbridge Tigers, trying to get high school football back for the kids. So they graciously asked if I would be the head coach, and it took some time to talk with my better half. And, it's, again, that precious commodity of time that we all don't have enough of. But I just think this was a very unique opportunity for me to come back and be able to hopefully give this opportunity to kids that are coming up in our town to be able to play football and hopefully pay it forward.
Mm. I love that on so many levels. First off, I love to restore the roar. Love that marketing. It's just
I
great
can't take
name.
credit for it.
Um, but the other thing that really resonates is I love the fact of that, you tap into your family, right? You ask, like you said, you ask your wife, hey, what do you think about this? And why it resonates is that's something I do. That's a check and balance I have in place as well, because I have a tendency to say yes to too much. So my wife keeps me whole at home and just makes sure I'm not biting off more than I can chew. So I love that. Happy wife, happy life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So as you embark and you start to bring this back, right? Because you're shining proof of what's possible, right? Like you think back to you lived it. Like your lived experience shows of where this beautiful game can take you. What are you noticing as you start to sort of plant these seeds of bringing something back and then starting to create a vision with a rock solid plan? Like, what are you noticing?
Energy. energy. Like it was just this kind of spoken idea at first, and then all of a sudden, this plan is put together by a couple gentlemen in Uxbridge here, Michael Kerford and Andy Lukanen, and they have a 10-year budget. They've talked to all the other schools that are playing football. They've talked to community members. They've pooled, kids in grade 7 and 8 that are going to be coming into high school. Like, what's the interest level? What's the landscape look like now? And just have this great kind of comprehensive plan. Whereas, all of a sudden I was feeling that buzz, right? And then we launched our GoFundMe, and in our first week, we've reached 50% of our $50,000 goal. So we're looking at launching a junior team next year and playing junior for 2 years, and then being able to go into senior in 2026. And, just today I went down to the mailbox walking the dog this morning and grabbed a paper, and the front page of the paper was Restore the Roar. And it's just like, that buzz and momentum and energy is just kind of growing. And, you go around town and all of a sudden you're hearing people, oh, they're talking about their memories and the impact football had on them. And that's been this kind of consistent story since we've launched this Restore the Roar, is how central football, even whether they played or not, they were in the band or they went to the pep rallies, or their family came and watched, how central football was to their high school experience. And it's like, that it's easy to forget sometimes when you're focused on the game and just in your lane, how much this game and this sport can have an impact on people, which has been exciting for me.
It's a couple things as you share that. One, it's a great reminder that, hey, it's great to have great thoughts, to dream big, but it's important to remind, like, you got to have a game plan, right? Doesn't mean you have to have all the answers, but you need to be able to have a great game plan so you can execute, right? So I appreciate you sharing that, and anyone that plays sports knows. The teams, the programs that win at any level of sport have a great game plan, and they execute that game plan.
Absolutely.
I also love the fact of more big picture here. You are bringing football back to a community and in an area that it's, football, has gone away in some. So you're servicing a need, right? And you're providing these opportunities for young people and coaches really to get re-involved and within our beautiful game.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We're obviously stoked about it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with football. Like, for me, it's an easy sell just because it draws so many people in. Everybody's got stories. There's endless kids that weren't playing sports and come to a football team, and there's a role for them.
Yeah.
And that's where, football's special.
Yeah. So as you kind of sounds like the game plan is getting executed, you're in a short time, you've achieved 50% of the goal from a fundraising perspective. What is something like, we're having this conversation a year from now? Like what's something where would you like, what'd you like to be talked about? What wins are we celebrating, I guess, is my question.
I hope that we're talking and celebrating a successful first year with our junior squad, right? And that we've hit that fundraising goal so that we know we have our funds there to repurchase equipment when we launch a second team in 2026. We want to really have that momentum up front, where we have that sustainable plan, so that those kids that invest in the program, we're already prepared to invest in their future so that they can keep going as seniors. And that we talk about kids learning, growing, becoming teammates, bringing our community even closer, and just teaching those life lessons that these kids, whether they never play another snap of football after high school, they carry something forward, any nuggets that serve them and help them so that they're better off because of playing this game.
Nice. And is there anything, are you guys doing anything actively? I know you said you typically share your kids' wins and family wins. Is there anything out there where, people want to sort of learn more or support in some way? Is there anything that, can people lend a hand anywhere right now?
For sure. I mean, any support is appreciated. We've got an active GoFundMe
Yeah.
under Restore the Roar. We've got a Facebook page,
Okay.
Restore the Roar, USS Tigers Football,
Mhm.
where you can like and follow, and you can find our GoFundMe from that Facebook page.
Okay.
And yeah, we're so appreciative of the people that have already jumped on board and supported, because it's really shown us that there was a need and is a need, and that there's people out there that see the benefits that our game can give their kids and our youth in our community. So yeah, any support's obviously greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, brother. And we'll be happy to share the links to the Facebook group, the GoFundMe on in the description, either on YouTube or on the podcast. So happy to share that out.
No, that's
Um, I'm curious, right? One of the things that this has really reminded me our conversation is, you're someone who not only talks about change, but more importantly, you're someone who acts like the change, right? You're being the change. If there was someone who came to you and say, Jeff, you know what, I have this idea, maybe it's to bring back a football, program in my city. Maybe it's just, hey, I'm wanting to create this thing outside of my current adventure, right? Maybe they're embarking on the next professional journey. Maybe they're just going through a time of challenge and change. If you could offer maybe one nugget of wisdom that can help them navigate along that journey, what words of wisdom would you share?
I would say if you're passionate about it and you feel like it's the right thing to do, then just say yes, put your foot forward, lean on people around you. If I'd like to think if you have done a good job serving other people, don't be afraid to go tap in to some of those people, and because people are more than willing to help and offer advice. And
Mhm,
sometimes we have to be humble enough to ask for it.
mhm,
So just say yes, go forward with, passion and energy
mhm.
and positivity, and see where you land.
Yeah, I love that. And again, great reminder on, serve others. And then one of the byproducts of that is at some point when you need help and support, people will be there to serve you. So it's a great reminder, full circle, right?
Full circle. Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, brother, I want to be respectful of your time and energy. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for the great man you are, the great dad, the great husband, the coach, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. The one thing that's been really cool is obviously, we have, our connections run deeper, right? You know, when you bleed purple, anyone knows that's ever bled purple knows that it runs deep. But the really cool thing is like you've always been a big physical guy, but you got a big heart. And it's not me just saying it like this version of you, but I think back to like I still remember like us being 20 years old, you have a big smile, it's a great energy, it's great enthusiasm, it's a great just approach to life. And I just want to thank you for reminding us today about the importance of energy, enthusiasm, just having a passion for life.
Oh, I appreciate it, brother. It's been great to connect. It's always great seeing your face and getting to chat. And I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I'll just take a moment to receive that from you. So, folks, Jeff dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. But as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates greater results in your life. So, my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from these conversations, if it resonated with you, if it touched your heart, then please share it with a friend, a loved one, a teammate, just someone you feel that would benefit from listening to these positive, inspiring, and empowering ideas. The more people we have listening, understanding, and applying these simple principles to their life, the more blessed this world will be. As always, love having these conversations with you in the huddle. Have a blessed rest of your day.